All my life, I've always tried to become a little bit better, continuing to learn, continuing to find my flaws, my mistakes. What becomes obvious to me is that I will never attain what I'm reaching for, but if my life is those series of admissions of guilt or flaw and at least an attempt to improve, I'd be satisfied with that as my life.
How did you come to music?
Initially, the most obvious answer is the fact that my father is one of the most renowned Armenian folk and liturgical singers. So I grew up with it in my home. But I could tell a story that kind of illustrates something a little bit beyond that. My father was an orphan. He doesn't remember his father at all. And his mother died when he was maybe 5 years old. The only thing he remembers of his mother is that she had a beautiful voice and would sing to him lullabies as he would fall asleep. And this is in Paris, France, in a little town called Alfortville. He didn't know anything else about his parents. When I was about 20 years old, my father and I were doing a concert in Paris for the Armenian community, and an old lady came up to him and said, "I knew your real parents. Would you like to come over and I can tell you whatever I remember?" Well, of course, we canceled everything that we had planned, and we went to have breakfast with this beautiful lady. And she said, "Well, your mother had a beautiful voice, and she would sing, and we would bring the coffee because you couldn't even afford coffee, but we would say, 'You just sing, we'll make the coffee.'" So that confirmed what he remembered about his mother, and that was such a warm feeling for him, of course. And then she continued. She told my father, she said, "Your father played the oud." And when she said that, I started to cry because here I am, a 20-year-old born in America, brought up on the Beatles. Why did I want to play the oud? It doesn't make sense. You're not going to get girls. You're not going to get money. But for some reason, I was drawn to that instrument. Well, that moment I learned that you have to trust what you're feeling inside, even if you live and die and never understand why you felt that way. You have to trust what your body, your heart, and your mind is telling you, because we are living examples of our ancestry. It's not dead, it's living in us. I didn't know my grandfather, but my God, I'm playing the oud. Who knows what other traits I have? Maybe I speak like him, maybe I walk like him. So that was one of the greatest moments. I wish I could remember the woman's name because she changed my life. She taught me to just trust what you're feeling. And I've always wanted to play music.
From that, what is your relationship with your ouds?
Well, it became my comforter. I found that I would go to my instrument more on the sadder occasions or moments in life when I needed an answer or comforting, and it never disappointed me. And by that, I don't mean that I always wrote a song when I picked up the oud, or I always played great, or I don't mean that at all. It was always there for me to relate to. And I'm very thankful of that because it could have been something else. It could have been something else more destructive, but it was my instrument. And it's as if it put its arms around me and said, "Yes, I understand."
Would you say that it was and it is your voice?
Yes, the truth is, I have played many different instruments: keyboards, wind instruments, percussion instruments, other string instruments, and many of them to a professional level. But somehow the oud became the instrument that most accurately would describe what it is I was trying to say. So I've become almost exclusively an oud player over the past 20 years.
How do you prepare yourself to perform?
I'm more calm on the stage than I am at this moment or in most moments because it is the one place that I have the opportunity to express myself in this language which will not be misunderstood. It has the potential to reach people who might be my historical and political enemy. It has the potential to reach people that are culturally so different from me that we would think maybe we don't have anything in common.
What kind of experience are you looking for yourself on stage?
I'm really not looking for anything. I am just willing to accept whatever the experience turns out to be. There are moments where either nothing is happening or I'm very uncomfortable, be it with my performance, with the sound, with the audience, I don't know. And there are other moments where I could not have predicted how magical that moment is. And once you've experienced that, you want to experience it again and again and again.
It's an addiction.
It is an addiction. And the very humbling thing about it is, at least for myself, I cannot force it to happen. I could play 5 nights in a row in the same auditorium, same musicians, same everything. One night it's magic, one night there's nothing. I'm very humble, so I don't go with any expectations onto the stage, but I say, okay, I'm here to accept whatever will happen.
That doesn't mean that you don't prepare yourself.
Well, to get a little more specific, for a concert, I personally like to rehearse. I like to rehearse my band, whatever that band might be, but not to the point where there's a certain perfection. I want the musicians to know the general form of the songs, of course, the general sequence of the songs, and just to be comfortable with the arrangements. I don't want to over-rehearse. I would rather it be a lot more spontaneous on the stage. So the preparation, yes, you rehearse, you make sure there are no questions, but then you have to submit yourself to whatever it is that will happen. And of course, I can't describe it. I can't describe what is in charge or how it happens or when or as a result of what, but you have to submit yourself. Oh, the music is going somewhere we never thought it was going to go. Okay, let's go. Let's see where it's going to take us.
You're a composer. What do you need to start composing a piece?
I need to live and to experience the human condition. That's it. If I'm a somewhat aware human being going through my life, allowing the joy and the pain of being alive to enter my system, then I have something to write about. Composing music is the opportunity to say things in a way that will not be misunderstood, misinterpreted, will be able to be relatable to everybody. I always think of this wonderful quote that I read from Duke Ellington, actually in the late 1920s, when he was asked, what is music, he said that music is how we say, I love you. And I thought, oh my God.
To anybody.
Yes, of course. If you feel all of these trials and tribulations of life, love is so powerful. Fear can be powerful. All these emotions can be very powerful. What do you do with them? How do you tell another human being, I've experienced this? Well, this is our language. This is the way we say it.
What does the word tradition mean to you?
You're in my music room, and if you look around, you can see thousands and thousands of records. My biggest collection is 78 RPM records that are over 100 years old. I mention this because I'm trying to tell you that I have almost a fanatical respect for tradition. I've tried to research the music of my culture. I've spent every penny I've had in trying to buy the old records to hear what my predecessors have done. So I have a tremendous respect for tradition. However, if I was to try to play like them, I would be absolutely a failure. Music, art, life must progress, must go forward like a fish. If we stop progress, we're dead.
Is it progress or is it freedom?
Well, they're two different words, but my point is that at no point should life or art stop. It will always offend a segment of the population. And this obviously goes deeper than just art. There are people who are offended or frightened or uncomfortable with progress. I feel that a tradition we can define as our foundation, but it's important for us before we die to have moved it forward a bit, to have learned our tradition, to have respected it, learned it as what we're standing on, but not to try to recreate it, because tradition has to do with a time and a place that will never return again. We have to be aware of our roots, of our traditions, of our cultures, of our history, take all of that information and move it forward a bit. Keep it going. As our ancestors did, there was no point where history stopped or art stopped. For those people who say, oh, you should not amplify the oud, for example, just as an example. Well, with what you're comfortable with, the oud players 50 years ago were using nylon strings that were newly invented. That's okay? At what point do you say, okay, no more? In other words, it should always move forward, and I'm proud to do that.
In a globalized world, there's a mix of traditions. What do you think about that?
At this point, it's unavoidable. With the technology and communications, I think of, for example, percussionists now around the world. It's as if every percussionist knows Latin technique, Arab technique, Indian technique. They've learned all of these different techniques on their drums. This is the way it is. This is part of the progress. I'm all for it. This is what I'm saying.
Are we going to see a unified tradition in the world?
Well, that's a huge question. And as humanity, we must learn how to coexist, to allow the other to exist and to be who they are. Not necessarily agree, not necessarily love or support, but at least to allow them to exist and be who they are as they allow us to exist. If that process occurs, and that's, of course, a huge wish or dream, maybe there will be some sort of, common thread. That would take, of course, many, many generations. In my own personal music, even the pieces that are more Western oriented, you can hear traces of my Anatolian Armenian roots. But even in my more Armenian-Anatolian songs, you could hear traces of the fact that I was born in America. I think what's most important is sincerity, not trying to be something you're not. This is my experience. I'm born here, but I know what my roots and my history is. So here I am playing this music.
Do you need silence to compose your music?
Oh, that's such a wonderful question. And I have a resounding answer of yes. I would most often compose at night when it's quiet and I could hear the melody. I don't particularly need an instrument. I just need silence so I can hear it. And then I could write it down or play it or record it.
How would you define what listening is?
What a wonderful question, Philippe. I'm going to answer it this way. A musician's job is not to play. It's to hear what most other people do not hear. Once you hear what is happening around you, then you know what to play. That part is the easy part. But if you're not listening, if you're just playing, then you're not doing your job. So I've always felt a musician's job is to listen and thus hear what others do not.
Why is it so difficult to listen?
I think a lot of people have preconceived ideas of what is music, what is culture, what is this, what is that. To listen, you're exposing yourself as being naive or naked. You are willing to learn or be taught or to be corrected or to be shocked. It's a very vulnerable situation to be in. Maybe people are not comfortable with that. But music humbles me every time I listen or pick up an instrument. I'm reminded that you're nothing. There's so much, there's universes to learn. There's universes to experience. I don't know, maybe it's a little strange, but I love that. I love being humbled like that.
I'm gonna leave the room. Please hold the microphone and add whatever you want to the interview.
Okay, very good. That's a very interesting direction. What I want to add is that a series like this gives a musician or any creative artist an opportunity to say something. We're fortunate people like Philippe are spending their energies in giving us this opportunity. And I suppose all I want to say is that I'm proud to be a musician because it unites us, and it's been a great tradition throughout the centuries of musicians giving us their art, and hopefully that will always continue.